It's good to be back. iRacing and IndyCar rejoin forces, and Monday nights are filled with the roars of the IR18. Welcome along to RaceSpotTV, where over the next handful of weeks we'll make our way around the world and follow along with the official iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. And where better to start things off? Well, we're heading to one of my favorite tracks of them all, to the green hell, to the Nordschleife. A combination maybe only suited for the virtual world, but one that proves to put on some great racing. Our Junior Kanky party alongside with Ewan O'Leary to get underway. Ewan, you and I, we've commentated on our fair share of races around the Nordschleife. Most recently on the most recent round of the Digital Nürburgring Endurance Series, where Rudy Van Buren and Max Verstappen came out on top in what was a great fight. But I think this is going to be something interesting. This will be something fun.
It's going to be something different. It's going to be absolutely mental as well. From most of the racing we see around here, and we do see a lot of it, you very rarely see open wheel cars of any description, never mind ones as fast as these. So it's going to be quite a recalibration of the brain for some who drive this circuit regularly in series that are more accustomed to this circuit. And it's certainly going to be a recalibration of our brains to see cars going quite so quickly around here.
I'll take credit for the Indy cars coming here now on what is almost a yearly basis. It might be included on a permanent basis in the rotation moving forward. Here's a look at the schedule, though. We'll reach halfway. Next week we head off to iRacing's new version of Zandvoort before the first oval back on RaceSpot on this Monday night, Texas Motor Speedway. And then a few more of the traditional circuits. Going to be fun as we make our way over onto Pocono to round out Season 1. Let's talk about points, because this is the first round that we've captured of the season, and therefore there are already points in the books. Adam Blocker has a bit of a lead. The reality is, Ewan, with new drivers getting back into the series moving forward from today, the points going to be very much shaking forward from here, but Blocker in a great spot to capitalize.
Yeah, he is. He's got off to a good start, but as you say, he'll be challenged today, no doubt. Phil Krause is here, for example, not viewed on that top 12, and some others as well, who will no doubt challenge him over the course of the day, not on those standings there. So he's got a bit of a head start and may well run with that to the end of the season. We'll wait and see on that, of course, but I think some and a lot of people have returned this week as a result of everything that's gone on.
And a bit of an interesting one. This is the first race of the iRacing week. It clicks over at Tuesday night, 0 GMT, and so it means that no time for qualifying here at the Nordschleife. Instead, that's done usually in sessions that will start to take place in about 23 minutes' time. The field's gridded up by iRacing. Let's run you down to that starting grid and take you through how they'll line up for 9 laps around the green hell. Adam Blocker and Kevin Burrell, the highest I-rated drivers of them all, line up on the first row, with Phil Krause and then Nicholas Sudik alongside on the second row. Alexander Van der Sant, Brian Carey share the third row in the Powerslide Motorsports entries, with Zachary Hubler and then Jacob Oster behind them. Robert Malechka and Seb Alexander round out the top 10, with Taylor Lane, Tristan Moss 11th and 12th positions. 13th going the way of the hyperstar Brendan Lichtenberg, with Olivia Hayward, Lewis McLeod, RaceSpot's own, hoping to stay out of trouble from the back alongside Sam Carasala, Eduardo Roca, and then Blaze Andrick make up the rest of the top 18 as they get ready to do battle. Again, 9 laps of racing action. And the one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing is, because we haven't had the chance to check out these Indy cars for quite a while, alternate tyre strategies come into play. In 9 laps, we're expecting 2 pit stops. Alternates being the softer but more grippy compound that wear faster. The primaries being the harder tyre that last long but maybe don't provide as much grip. Always interesting to think about what strategies the drivers will be using.
It is, and I'm hoping we get some variation on that as well. You mentioned there that there's only 9 laps here. I think that from a sort of logical point of view, without having legitimate statistics to back this up, it makes sense that a lot of the strategies would be the same, because there's so limited amount of laps where you can actually come into the pit lane. I just hope that everyone doesn't follow each other in and do the same thing on every lap. I do fear that slightly from a pure logical point of view, that there's only 9 laps and there's only so many things you can do when you're already passing the pit lane 9 times. So I hope that's not the case, and I hope we get some variation and some intrigue over the course of the race.
Let's see if I can pull that graphic up on the left-hand side of the screen. It's been so long, so I don't even remember where the button is right now. There we go. I can finally find it. It's not even working right now. That's a great start. I can tell you that all bar the last 2 drivers are on the primary compound of tyres, so only Eduardo Roca and Blaze Andrick electing to start on the alternate, so it might also be interesting to see how they fire things off. The Grand Prix layout as well, Ewan, is also the most, let's say, difficult part of the lap, because a setup is a compromise, right? And to set the car up well on the Nordschleife, it makes the car feel less than optimal on the Grand Prix section.
Yeah, and when you add the Nordschleife in anyway, irrespective of the setup, just from a pure driving point of view, in my experience anyway, it makes the Grand Prix layout feel a bit weird and not quite normal anymore because of the not normal Nordschleife that you're about to take on as well. So that's going to be especially interesting to see how these guys play it through that Grand Prix section, because it is the widest point on this circuit. It's maybe the best chances for overtakes other than into here when we're at full speed at the end of the opening lap. So it will be interesting to see how we play it and if we get everybody through turns 1 and 2 safely.
Well, we're ready to go. Boy, this will be a fun one. Tense as well, but the drivers are stacked up for 9 laps of racing action. 18 cars, not gridded up by qualifying times, but by their iRating. Will that be the order that they finish in? Blocker's going to hold them for a while. Pace cars off and away. And IR18's rumble once again on Monday night. Blocker gets them off. Sudik tries to now defend from Van der Sande and Kraus, who already fired up the inside. Big look from the private label team hype car, who locks the inside front. Contact with Kevin Burrell, who gets punched out wide, but it's Phil Kraus that loops it around and will drop to the back in through the arena section. It's a crazy start for them all, but it's Kevin Burrell that holds on to second through all of that, as out of the arena section, Blocker will lead.
And he's got a huge lead as well as a result of the contact in that battle for second position. Phil Kraus did a very good job to spin up the rear tyres and actually get out the way of everybody as they made their way through turn 1. But it's been a difficult start for him, and he'll have a lot of work to do over the course of 9 laps.
There they go through that shortcut, and now it's basically the back half of the Grand Prix section still left to come before they hit the Nordschleife. Blocker's already gone. No one's used the push to pass just yet. That's something that we also will be talking about. 10 usages of that button gives you about 60 extra horsepower. Teammates going to swap around as Robin Malechka gets past Brian Carey, but it's up towards the far chicane. Outside line for Seb Alexander, who will have to surely tuck back into line.
And it really is a fast chicane in these IndyCars. High downforce, of course, and a high-speed corner to help out with. Then out onto the Nordschleife now, taking his left-hander. Nicholas Sudik almost seems he's forgotten because Jacob Oster was able to get straight through there in the 8 car, and he's already made up 4 places before we end up on the Nordschleife.
Got to wonder as well, setup balances, what compromises have been made. Nordschleife is known for the 170 plus corners, but connecting all of those little bits of straights, and we're about to come up to what is one of the most pivotal of them all now. The run up through the Flugplatz section, then through Schwaudenkrautz, down towards Arenberg, and then onto the brakes heavily before you get to the Foxhole. Van der Sande's being dropped by the top 2 right now as he feels the pressure from Jacob Oster in the first of the i5G machines.
And now we go on board through this very high-speed section. In GT cars or normal cars that you see racing around here, it's difficult to do there flat out, but we absolutely are here in the IndyCar, flying through and down the hill. Push to pass starting to be used as well now, something that will have to be managed over the course of the day, of course, with so much flat-out running around this circuit.
It's one of those tracks as well where you're somewhat limited in passing opportunities, so you're not necessarily going to be using that push to pass regularly. The question will be, when do you get the chance to take full advantage of that? Phil Kraus is going to have to work his way back up through the field as Olivia Hayward drops to 17th spot behind Eduardo Roca. Blaise Andrick did start, by the way, down in pit lane. He's burning through those push to passes, try and close up through the field, but it's now getting toward the fun part of the Nordschleife. Fun when you're running by yourself, a lot more tense when you're running in a pack. Fortunately, Adam Blocker 2.2 seconds clear at the front.
And the sort of advantage he's getting as well is that Kevin Burrell is being caught by those behind. Alex Van der Sande in the 5 car is closing in as well, so that gap extends to 2.5 seconds, and you can only imagine it will balloon further when these two start fighting. And not just these two either, it's a whole train running right the way down to arguably Olivia Hayward.
Even Lewis McLeod's been able to stay inside of this leading gaggle. One thing I'll note is the fixed setup that iRacing actually provides for this track is not half bad, but not half bad means that compared to some of the team setups, it's still probably 3 or 4 seconds off because it's running maybe a bit more downforce. So maybe some of the drivers that came in with less setup preparation will find themselves caught out just a little bit. Coming up to one of the other crucial sections of the track as the top 5 now start to stretch their legs a little bit from Nick Sudik and those behind. It's that run out of Bergwerk and in towards a corner quite aptly named the Mutkurve, which translates to bravery.
Yeah, and we are going to need some if we're going to see some overtaking through that corner here today. Jacob Oster probably the closest to doing that. He's trailing Alex Van der Sande at the moment for the 3rd position out there on the circuit, but I don't think he's close enough at the moment. Sudik is using the push to pass, but I don't think he's close enough to Malechka to make it work into the Mutkurve either.
working on board with the Worm Man as he flicks it through the left. You can see still stays in 6th gear, but I think might have dropped out of the optimal rev range there. You want to keep the car between about 5 and 12,000 RPM ideally, but it's 4 cars really now being hung up behind Kevin Burrell. I got to wonder if that's downforce related, and on the Dottinger Hoer, Van der Sat and those behind will try and take advantage. Similarly, Nick Sudik playing a bit of the cork in the bottle as through the carousel we go, and I've got to say that this is a corner which is bouncing in the best of machines, and Taylor Lane finds out just how treacherous it can be. I think Tristan Moss may have got caught out as well.
Yeah, Moss was the car immediately behind, and in slowing up, I think got rear-ended, or maybe he just got unstuck on his own himself as well through the carousel, but just as he was... Oh, and into the wall! Nicholas Sudik, after leading the train, he's in the wall too. And
let's see what his reactions right now. As cool as you'd like, he's going to have to nurse his way down through these next couple of sectors with no left front wing on that car. It's going to be treacherous to say the very least. Van der Sat puts the pressure on as we take a look back in time at what happened at that race start. It was aggressive from Phil Kraus, but to be fair, he was initially alongside. We'll ride on board with Zachary Hubler, and just check out his perspective of all of that chaos. And, well, Phil Kraus got the worst of it. Everyone else got through safely.
Yeah, well avoided from everybody else, and no, it wasn't overly aggressive from Phil Kraus. It was certainly a move down to the inside, but you're allowed into turn 1, especially on that one. He just got it wrong immediately. The front right locks up, a big lock-up as well, goes straight into the side of the car alongside him and spins around as a result. But as I say, everybody avoids very well.
Here we come towards that second carousel, and this is the corner where it is the most frustrating in my opinion, because the car always wants to understeer as Alexander Van der Sat finds out there. Oh, is that a commentator's curse? Lewis McClay doesn't believe in it. Alexander Van der Sat will hope not, and this will allow Kevin Burrell an opportunity at the end of this first lap to hold on to that second spot. He's on the button, using that horsepower to try and hold on.
He is. None of the others trailing him are really using it to try and get on terms with him. Now Van der Sat decides to, but this is the problem I was talking about earlier on. You're on throttle here, full throttle for so long around this circuit, and as you said, there are limited chances to do so as well, so everybody ends up on the button at the same time, and that's what we're seeing here, side by side between Maleczka and Oster, and also for second place.
And up the inside, Van der Sat will get through before they're even onto the brakes in towards Tiergaard in that final corner. The commitment, you can just see how hard they're working, and Van der Sat maybe went a little bit deep, but the gap at the front going to be 5 seconds clear for Adam Blocker from his Powerslide Motorsports teammate. Kevin Burrell in that satellite racing car has dropped down into 3rd position with Maleczka behind, Oster directly in competition as well, and then a big margin back to Seb Alexander and Brian Carey. What is a 2-car train as a couple of cars are off to pit lane.
Yeah, very big gaps already. Nicholas Sudik is into pit lane, and that's hardly a surprise given the damage that surely he must have picked up at the top of the hill at Hoeracht, at the highest point on the circuit. Blaise Andrich also into the pit lane, so some early stops for some and some very big gaps as well, as to be expected around here at the Nordschleife. It's created some real disparities in this pace of the drivers already, and of course the incident, some things haven't helped on the opening lap.
Let's go back in time then and see what happened at the carousel, as through the shortcut we will work in that battle for what is 9th position. This is not going to be the greatest look from up above. You're just going to see the car go around, and you can see that behind it's 2 separate incidents, and then a third one as another car popped out of the groove, and the carousel bit a handful. It's very, very important that you stay in the line of the carousel itself, otherwise the car will just spin around on you.
It will, and I don't know if Tristan Moss was distracted by what he was seeing in front and went for a spin on his own, or what, or whether he was going to spin on his own anyway, but it's hard to know. But they both went around, and thankfully everybody slipped through, despite the fact that 2 cars ended up outside the carousel. This is Sudik at the top of the hill. He actually got the wall out of the first part, so normally what you see out there is sort of a bit of a running wide up here on the curb on the left-hand side, but actually he got it wrong right from the very start. He misses that apex, and then it's all wrong from here on in. He hits the wall there, which is especially unusual, and then he's just going straight on into the next one.
And that's where the lack of downforce maybe, if you compensate, as they checked up slightly further behind, and that's Olivia Hayward that gets tagged as the rear wing starts dangling and maybe having to come down the pit lane as well. But going back to the incident with Nick Sudik. It's so important when you take out the downforce, you understand the lines you need to take. Malechka's on the push to pass and blows past Kevin Burrell before they even get towards Shroud and Kraut. I think that's a bit of an indication of the top-end deficit that maybe Kevin Burrell is running.
Yeah, he's on the move as well. It's partly down to Malechka being, on the move and going forward at the moment. He's made up 6 places already, but maybe there's also a bit of Burrell falling back right now. He's got the number 2 car in this race, but was around 6th in the standings as of right now, which kind of shows the season he's been having so far in this car over the course of the first 5 rounds that we've seen in iRacing so far for the opening season of 2024. He'll be looking to hope that this is sort of the last position that he really loses, but Jacob Oster is right close behind as well. Then there's a bit of a further gap back to Seb Alexander, 4 seconds away.
Don't forget, by the way, that if you want to help shape the schedule for the upcoming season, 2024 Season 2, you can jump onto the iRacing forums where the schedule voting is going on. Most of the schedule determined by a rotation system, of course tying in with the official IndyCar schedule as well, but there are a couple of weeks, including this one, that are voted on by the community, and who knows what you may want to see coming up in that next season as we move on forward. So again, just a reminder in terms of tyres, the top 8 as they run all on the primaries. Eduardo Roca's gone up 8 positions as he starts on the alternates, but now is starting potentially to feel that pain of those tyres, which will at the end of 2 laps, we believe, potentially start to fall off. 9-lap race, expecting of course the drivers to make 2 pit stops. 2 laps the most you hypothetically want to spend on this compound.
And that is sort of, weird to calibrate your brain to around here at this circuit, because that's quite a significant portion of the race. But then again, you're thinking, well, it's only 2 laps, so it is a weird one to think about. But that's what he's going to have to here, Roca, you'd imagine, at the end of this lap, to see how the strategy is going to pan out for the rest of the day, given that it's a little bit different to what everyone else has gone for so far. Up towards the muck curve now in this battle for 10th position between Lichtenberg and Carasalo. It looks like we're going to see these 3 staying as they are, with Phil Kraus now joining the group.
He's working his way forward, seemingly has no damage to his car, maybe only to the ego, and hopefully not driving too aggressively. Eduardo Roca used that push to pass. You can see the advantage that he was able to build. Oster's past Burrell, so Burrell started 2nd, now down to 5th position in the satellite racing entry. Let's see if there'll be any slip-ups through the carousel for the 2nd time of asking. A couple of tentative entries, but as Brendan Lichtenberg pops out high, no chance for Carasalo or Kraus to take advantage.
It's one of those awkward moments where there's sort of no room to do it. It's so narrow round here that when you pop out at such an awkward angle like that, you really can't do a lot when you're the trailing car, and that extends to Phil Kraus as well. He'll be pretty frustrated that he's stuck behind these 2 in front of him right now, and he's not able to make the progress that he would like to. But I reckon the top 5 maybe even still achievable for him. It just depends what kind of rest of the race he's going to have and how often he gets stuck in these kind of groups.
Yeah, of course, for Phil Kraus, this is maybe not the main focus for him. In what is it? It's under 3 hours' time. We'll be back live on RaceSpotTV with the final round of the Butt Kicker Sports Car Championship, where Phil Kraus is in the lead of the championship, fighting for a chance to drive a BMW M4 GT4 machine at the BMW Performance School in Thermal, California. And so, as much as he would probably have wanted to practice a bit more for this race, not necessarily sure if he had the chance to. Back through that Kleiner carousel, Van der Sant with no issues this time by, even if he has lost about 2 seconds to his teammate up the road. Through Galgenkopf, that looked like Van der Sant took it as wide on entry as he could, but it's 2 teammates that, interestingly, Malechka pops out of draft quite early. We saw Van der Sant use the button late. Because it's such a long straight, I think he's delaying his activation just so he can keep the extra horsepower all the way into the braking zone.
Yeah, you don't often see this around normal circuits, about that sort of delay, because obviously it's a set amount of time that you actually get the power boost for, and normally on a normal circuit, in a normal straight, that's not something you really have to think about, but it is around here, because as you can see, just as you go under the bridge there, it sort of ran out, and well, that's it. You've got no more speed to use, if you like, or no more extra power to use, so it's all about when you use it on this back straight, and how as well, at what moment to make what overtake and all of that kind of thing over the course of the race. There's a new fastest lap, by the way, for Adam Blocker, who is looking untouchable so far.
It's a fastest lap by default, I should just point out, because the first lap, technically the time didn't count for any of the drivers. Indicates probably off-track incidents for many of the drivers, contact for some of them else. And then, of course, he is at the front of the field and the fastest. So we'll see if he's able to go faster at the end when he's on the red compound of tyre. Phil Krause is into pit lane, by the way, so that's an interesting call. What I am going to go do is go dig up the old world record here at the Nordschleife on iRacing, as Alexander Van der Stent has a brief technical blip there, because we've had some change in the tires since we started coming here, I should say. But the weather conditions, 36 degrees Celsius, aren't that warm. They aren't necessarily as cold as we've had here before.
No, especially not for April as well. We're racing on the 1st of April in Sim. It's sort of the middle of the afternoon, height of the temperatures, if you like, on this particular day. But for some reason, spring is not so warm in this version of the Nordschleife on this particular day. So we do know there's massive. We've seen snow in April at the Nordschleife before, so it could be worse. So we're doing okay. 36 down on the circuit at the moment. We'll see what we can get up to here today. I do get the feeling though that maybe people have been driving this car fairly regularly anyway, but there may be a slight little bit of a lack of practice because of the last year or so. There may be just that slight edge taken off of the sort of overall competition, if you like, the overall standard of everybody as they get back up to speed again. But maybe they're more talented than me and they can just jump into it and get on with it again straight away. We
still have had some of those league series continue to run. Lionheart's IndyCar series continue, just unbroadcasted over the course of 2023. So I do think you're right, though. The lack of running Indianapolis, for example, means that I think it's going to be quite interesting heading into the iRacing Indy 500, how things are going to shake up, both in terms of setup building, but also driving, because qualifying at Indy is its own unique challenge, to say the very least. We're on to that third lap where we kind of expect the pit stops to get underway. Seb Alexander has been able to drop Brian Carey, who's fallen into the clutches of Zachary Hubler in what I believe is a distinct.gg racing machine. Looks like Lewis McLeod is on the push to pass as well. He's at least surviving out there.
You banter him then, and the only thought I could think of in my head was, why? Why is he using his push to pass here? I don't know, but he is. So it's probably a good place as any. He's not really around anyone at the moment, and maybe that's
for the best.
Best for the safety of everybody, really. And so I'm not sure if he's made a pit stop or if he's just become detached. I guess he's just become detached, doesn't he, from the field? And he really has jumped into this late, as we know, and so it's to be expected that you're not on the pace of some of these drivers who are very good, as it turns out.
No, and to be fair, the messages that we got, okay, I have done no practice, never raced Nords on the IndyCar, never raced the IndyCar on road, the default setup doesn't feel great, hashtag let's do this. The final message he sent before he got underway was the loss of iRating here will be incredible. To be fair, he came in as the 15th ranked machine, so it's not like the expectations were particularly high.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's because that's kind of how it works, isn't it? If he was racing with Adam Blocker's iRating and driving like this, then maybe I would be concerned. But I think he'll be fine. He won't lose too much. But it's all for a bit of a giggle. Why not?
Yeah, I haven't seen, by the way, an incident flagged for him, so at least he's got that. If you can stay incident-free here for 9 laps, I'll have to give him credit, as much as it will pain me to do so. Van der Stent 1 second clear of Malechka. Jacob Oster tucked in behind, and only 6.5 tenths in lieu. Birrell's trying to use the push to pass. He's already burned through now 3 of the 10 that he gets. That's one thing slightly different, of course, to the real world. Ewan, in the real world, it's a second-based allotment. Here we get a fixed number of usages, something that hopefully will change sometime this year.
And it sort of makes it pretty easily divisible at this circuit for the race. 9 laps and 10 usages. So, it's basically 1 a lap, although you do have that spare one to use if you get really desperate at some point around the course of a lap. But it doesn't seem like anybody, or I've not noticed anybody so far, really using it in a routine. So I've not noticed anybody getting to the same point on the circuit every single lap and doing it again and again and again. Now I know we're only on lap 3, so maybe those routines will start to develop over the course of the remainder of the race, but even so, even at this stage, I'm not seeing anybody doing the same thing again and again. I guess it just depends on how you adapt to those around you and what situation you're in.
Looks like Eduardo Roca's had a bit of a spill. He's dropped down the timing order. One other thing, I guess, just to think about is that, you know, using that push to pass does actually burn a bit of fuel. So maybe there's a bit of fuel conservation going on. I'm not necessarily sure how many drivers are really thinking about trying to extend the stints, though, because I have the feeling even the black compound of tires are not going to be great. Here's a look at what happened to Roca, and oh, it's another spill, and it's at the carousel once again. It's one of those places, because it's so bumpy, the suspension of the car is really struggling to keep up.
And then he had the awkward situation of how do I get down from here, because he just gets too far to the left-hand side there, gets on the sort of flatter part to the very left, and then thinks, well, oh no, there's someone coming round on the top side as well. That was especially awkward, as they had to slip by next to the Armco. Doesn't want to particularly dive down through that sort of very banked section, because I'd be slightly scared of getting stuck.
Just a little bit, yeah. No, I have beached a couple of cars on the curbs here. Not Indy cars, but GT3 cars in particular. So it's very, very possible to do as, Seb Alexander's looped it. That's just before the Kleiner carousel, I do believe.
After.
Is that after? It is
just
after.
It's on the exit, so he's tried to get the power down, I'd imagine, and he's gone. So Seb Alexander is going to be gone from this race, I would imagine, after a spin through the Kleiner carousel, either on the way through or the way out. Let's have a look and see what happened to him. Second gear down on... I mean, I've seen other people do that plenty of other laps, and it's just got away from him on that occasion. It's just so tricky to get it right.
Oh, and then did he also potentially get the car stuck in some way, because it didn't seem like it was going to roll after that. Hubler not going to get past Brian Carey in towards the final corner. This 6th now and 7th positions as Blocker goes even faster. 6:47, 7:06 also indicates, by the way, that he is going to potentially push on this lap even with the tires. Kevin Burrell into pit lane, as is, interestingly, Zachary Hubler, and so they come in at the end of that 3rd lap. So Blocker's been able to go that additional lap. Sets him up, I think, for a bit of a blockbuster at the end.
Yeah, I think it does. We get into this stage now where things are starting to develop strategy-wise, and we're starting to see maybe what we are going to see at the end of the race. We'll start to get an idea of what this race is going to look like by the end of 9 laps. We're a third of the way through already. It's been very interesting to watch, and it's been very lonely for Adam Blocker on the bottom right-hand side.
So the pit stop time, I think, was around 9.1 seconds. Didn't quite get a update on my timing screen. So as Burrell is off and away, it is on the alternate tires. I can update you, and you can, of course, see that highlighted by the red on the outside. Those aren't the red Indy 500 spec tires. No, those are the red striped alternate tires instead. With the fact that Malechka and Oster have also been sitting behind Alexander Van der Sant, will they be in a position where potentially they've saved a little bit more fuel as Oster gets the rear end stepping out on him? Could that mean that they spend a little less time in pit lane?
It's possible. You're never going to save a lap around here, of course, but you could well just save those very minute tenths of a second that are so important during a race as close as this in terms of this battle for second. It is going to come down to fine margins. However, I've not seen the two behinds really lifting off very much, or they don't look like they're saving a lot. They look like they're all pretty close to maximum in terms of the speed that they can run around this circuit. So I'm really unconvinced as to the fact that they've really saved any sort of tangible or useful amount of fuel in the pit stops. We'll find out soon, of course.
Something that we've seen in some of those digital Nürburgring Endurance Series races, the shots of the front end of various GT cars coming up through the Flugplatz because of the lack of downforce relative to the IndyCar. These cars, no such worries. They are planted to the ground, and it's basically foot to the floor through the double right. It's also foot to the floor all the way down through the foxhole, and this is honestly, quite surprisingly, one of my scariest points on the track because of how much commitment you really want to try and bring into the corner. Maletka's honestly a little bit more tentative than I tried to be on qualifying attempts, but I don't necessarily blame him. Look how much Van der Sant is struggling to get the car to turn.
Yes, it's somewhat a legacy of this circuit as well, the fact that we've got such great drivers, of course, in road course racing, IndyCar racing in general, but they're still going wide, missing braking points in places. You can still see points on the circuit where, you know, they've not quite maximised something or whatever, made a small mistake, and that's down to the circuit. It's really making these guys work for this at the moment, and it's fascinating to watch the to's and fro's of this battle. In fact, earlier in the lap, as they came off the Hatzenbach, I thought Van der Sant was getting away, and all of a sudden Malečka's right there again.
This is the slowest part of the track, down through Nordschleife. The left front often just locks up by the nature of the track falling away from you and it not gripping the tarmac, and the on and off contact with the ground that it makes. That was uncomfortably wide. You don't want to be touching some of these curbs in this IndyCar, especially given how raised they are. Oster again with the rear end just half sideways as he exits off the corner. He is so eager to get on the power and to stay in the draft of the two in front.
And this could be dangerous here because the three of them are very, very close. Malečka didn't have a great run there out of Bergberg, so maybe he won't be able to go for it in the mud curve, but he is on the push to pass, he is on the button. Van der Sant isn't, and he may well just breeze through anyway.
It's the only second time this race that Malečka uses the push to pass, and around the outside, dips 2 tires into the grass, but I think this is more just teammates not trying to get tangled up with one another. Finally, Malečka slides on through, but it's a brave pass from both parties to stick as fast as they were. Van der Sant just pops out of line to try and get a little bit of clean air into the braking zone, as now Malečka's the one that runs a little bit deep. This is the, I've got to say, the relentless thing about racing at the Nordschleife. You feel like you're in a proper battle amongst your foes.
And you certainly are. These three certainly are as well, and Jacob Oster just doing the correct thing, I think, as well, by sitting in here. Just monitor those two in front, see what they're doing, and follow them for the moment. He hit a little lift off there on the way up towards Horact. He may well be saving just that little bit of fuel. Maybe that will put him in good stead for the pit stop phases of this race, as we were referencing earlier. But it's a good start to the race for him in terms of sitting in this 4th position, undamaged. He's not been off the road yet. He's still sitting there, you know, driving well. And, you know, I can't see Malečka getting away. Just let the front two in front of you do their thing and sit in here with Oster. He's doing absolutely fine where he is.
Looks quite calm, not bad.
Yeah. I'm not sure where he is in the world, by the way, but it looks very dark.
Oh!
Oh dear! And off the road, very nearly. Van der Sant, I'm amazed he saved it at all, but he has lost 3rd place.
It was a great save as the Powerslide Motorsports car half twitched on him, as I think he bounced on the curb on the exit there. Oh, it's allowed Malečka to almost break the draft. To push to pass may let him clear those behind, as through the Stefan Beloff S as they go. Have to grab a replay of that one. That was close to disaster.
I think Tristan Moss has had issues on this lap as well. Nico Sudik has just gone through into 12th place as a result of that one. So there's been a couple of issues on this last lap. Oster going for his own slide through the Kleine Carousel as well. But what a save this one from Van der Sant. He just gets it on the power a bit too early. He's very lucky he didn't slide out further towards that curve on the outside. Otherwise he certainly wouldn't have saved it.
And so interesting, Malečka not on the push to pass, now on the push to pass rather, as Oster, the one that got onto it slightly earlier. We'll be curious to know how much information these drivers have. There are various third-party tools that can tell you when your competitors are using that overtake. Oster is now out of it though, with Van der Sant still behind him, and with that 60 to 70 horsepower boost. It will run out though and expire just as they crest under the bridge, but we will expect all of these drivers down to pit lane and following in the race leader Adam Blocker after 4 very clean laps for the most part up front.
Yeah, he's just controlling this race from the front, and everyone's going to follow in here, so we've clearly reached the limit in terms of these tyres. Oh, contact! Contact in the background. Jacob Oster's got no rear wing, I don't think. Or was it Van der Sant's front wing that's gone? It's the front wing of Van der Sant which is gone.
I think the iRacing gods have smiled on Jacob Oster. Van der Sant's going to be held for about 5 seconds longer now as a result of that. We'll grab a replay at some point in time. There you can see up on the jacks, and surely some work going to go onto that car. Kevin Burrell, let's not forget, did take the alternate tires, but he's not even a consideration for the likes of Oster and Malečka in terms of being leapfrogged on pit lane. It might be a bit closer though for Alexander Van der Sant, who surprisingly identical time on pit lane. iRacing gods have smiled on him too.
How on earth has he done that? Well, yeah, well, in fact, his lane time is exactly the same as Malečka, so it hasn't cost him anything.
Jacob Oster did have a slightly shorter pit stop by virtue probably of saving a bit of tires, and you'll note he is the one that's jumped on to the alternate compound tire. He needs to blow away from those behind and hope he doesn't drop them around the first sector of the Nordschleife.
Yeah, he does. I'm not sure whether he sort of imagined he was going to come out in third, second or first in this sort of group, because I guess the tyre call kind of makes sense for whichever way you want to look at it. If you want to look at it this way, the fact that he was expecting to go out in first, then yeah, he'll be looking to do what you say there, just get out away from these guys as quickly as possible. He's already got more than a second. He's not at risk of towing them around the Nordschleife, which is sort of the cardinal sin, if you like, the only thing he can do wrong in this stint, really, and he's already made sure that's not going to happen.
This is where we were hoping for a little bit of different tyre strategy going on, and so we're excited to see that. Let's jump on board with Van der Sant for a look at the replay. As in towards the pit lane they come, and well, initially there was one checkup that was fine, and the second one's where it all sort of concertinaed. You don't have to be at the speed limit at the line, you only have to be at the speed limit on an average across the pit lane.
And I think that's why you see that sort of second slowing, if you like, from Oster. So to me there on that onboard, it looked like Oster initially just slowed down for the pit line as you would normally see, and then there seemed to be a second slowing. I don't know if it was just me watching the closing gap, but it seemed to me as if there was sort of a second closing there, and that's what initiated the contact. Possibly due to what you just mentioned there, the fact that this sort of based on a sort of sections of the pit lane and an average, which is quite complicated to work out, but it's true, and it may have caused that.
We just let iRacing deal with it for the most part. It's much easier that way. Down through Arenberg, the gap already up to 2.3 seconds. You can just tell the effect that the alternate tires have, especially when you're able to flick them on. Hopefully we'll get the graphics working next week for the tire compounds just to make it that little bit easier. But to confirm after the pit stop cycle, it's Oster, Birrell, Hubler, Lichtenberg, Roca and McLeod, the drivers that are on the alternate compound of tire. Everyone else is on the primary still, and we'll go on to the alternates at the end. We'll see if that's the call that works for them.
We will. I mean, I'm very glad to see variations in pit strategy. It's one of my favourite things. So even though we haven't got those three pitting on different laps, if you like, for a second place, we have got them doing something a little bit different on the tyres, and that's what I like about sort of early season races as well. I know there have been races previous to this, of course, but it's early season for us, we'll call it. And what I'm really enjoying is the fact that people don't really know what the best strategy is yet, and they're not going to get a great chance to sort of look at what the best strategy is. We've only got 3 road courses after this one, so coming up in the second half of the season, 3 road courses and 3 ovals. And 3 races is not very long to work out a legitimate and obvious pit strategy from 3 very different racetracks which you've got coming up on the roadside. Sometimes
we do also see that the race distance is slightly different across of those rounds as well, so it'll be interesting to see where those lengths end up lying. Check a replay of Alexander Van der Sant, who's dropped behind Robin Malechka even more. Oh, locks the inside front and pushes out wide, and fortunately I think arrests the momentum just before he slid into the wall.
And very lucky to do so as well in some ways. You rarely sort of recover from that. There it is. You could tell immediately, just by the way that he shifted down from 4th later, he thought, oh dear, I've done something majorly wrong here. And thankfully didn't end up in the wall, because it's one of those corners where you do feel like you're braking too early on some occasions, but there's a very fine line between feeling like you have broken too early, getting it right, and then going too late on the brakes, which should send you, if it goes really wrong, up over the curb and straight in the wall.
Oh, that's a nice little sound as they fly on past. The road course wings, of course, in full effect. Seems like double planes for both Hubler and Birrell. Can't quite tell rear wing angles from these perspectives, but iRacing's aero model and the visual model that stacks on top of that, quite fun for the teams to experiment with and to see those changes represented in the sim as well. Something that maybe when we go over to Texas will be a bit more of a talking point. Hopefully Texas will grace us with some decent racing as well, because it's not going to be on the IndyCar schedule in the real world this year. So hopefully we can still have a treat in the virtual world.
Yeah, pretty disappointed about that, I've got to say. I always enjoy Texas, although it's not my absolute favourite of the ovals, I'll point out, but you know, it's not a bad one. So hopefully we can see some good racing around there this season, and hopefully we see it in a couple of the other seasons this year as well, since it's not on the real schedule. And I've got to say there's a disappointing lack of ovals, in my opinion, on the real schedule this season. But anyway, maybe that's for another day.
Don't worry, that's a topic that I don't think many people are going to disagree with you there. More ovals would be more better, but unfortunately we'll have to
More
wait.
better.
I just had to throw that one in there. We'll see how it goes down the road. Zachary Hubler holds close to Kevin Burrell. They actually make a small little jump in through Flanscott in there. Quite intriguing to see. The downforce maybe not at full effect there. Burrell, let's not forget, started on the second row. He's now 24 seconds behind Adam Blocker and is on to the second lap of the tyres as well as he runs on those alternates.
Yeah, so is it going to be pit lane this time around? That would make sense, because 4 laps to go means that if you put some Blackwall tyres on again and you can run to the end, it's not too much of a stretch, as we saw from the top 4. They all did 4 laps to start this race, so surely now in the final 4, Burrell will be able to do that as well. It wasn't a very good line there from Hubler out of Gouwenkop, so I don't think Burrell's going to be under too much pressure, although it looks like it won't matter. The Tottenham is such a long stretch of road that Hubler doesn't even need the push to pass by the looks of things, although he will use it anyway. It's
about 9:45 in Japan, where Kevin Burrell is based, and as he sees Zachary Hubler fly around the outside, nice little wake-up call there. We'll see if either of these drivers is heading down to pit lane. They pitted on the same lap on their previous cycle of pit stops. We've already seen one little moment of drama as multiple drivers tried to make their way to pit lane limit at the same time. Who's heading drivers right? Not the distinct car. The satellite racing car does come in. It will be a fuel-saving call to the end for Burrell.
Yep, so it run to the end here of 4 laps for Burrell, and he looks to sort of recover a top 5, if you like, after that front row start. Not his greatest showing, but I just don't think he's got the pace, even of the likes of that battle for second place, Ooster, Maletska and Van der Sant. I just don't think he can really stick with them, never mind Adam Blocker out front.
There you can see pit lane, Brendan Lichtenberg flies past. Phil Kraus is into pit lane as well, so I would suspect that he has done 2 stints on the primaries. Is he going to try and take the alternates for 4 laps, or is this effectively a recognition
Restop
from Phil that he's going to have to make another stop? He is indeed going on to the alternates.
Well, this strategy really doesn't make much sense at all. I mean, maybe, to be fair, he came in on lap 2, wasn't it? Or
he may have destroyed the tyres at the end of lap 1 and got stuck behind traffic and said, you know what, let me turn this into a 3-stop.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Or irrespective of, to be fair, whether the tyres were ruined, just the fact that I'm in loads of traffic right now and this race might go a bit quicker if I'm not stuck behind it. I don't necessarily agree with the strategy, if I'm being totally honest, but it might have worked on another day. Whereas he's 10th at the moment, a minute back from Adam Blocker, and if you think about it, he and everybody else ahead, apart from Burrell, have got one more stop to make as well. So this is effectively where he is in the race. He's not going to catch them up by making no pit stop. He's not going to do 4 laps on the red stripe tyres.
No.
That'd be outrageous. Although, that'd be funny.
He could do just 1, to be fair, and come in at the end of this lap and put the primaries back onto the end. Might be what we see. Jacob Oster's closed the margin to Blocker on those alternates, by the way, to now 5 seconds. So it does show that there is a little bit of speed on them. If you did 4 laps in the first stint on the primaries, indicates you could probably do 4 laps in the second stint as well. I wonder if Adam Blocker is planning on doing 1 at the end, or if he will do 3. The word from him before we got underway, of course my teammate, someone that I kind of just rely on to tell me what he's going to do, did kind of indicate 4-3-2 would be his preferred option.
It's like football formation, isn't it? Soccer, sorry, America.
No, you're missing a player there. Unless we've got someone sent off, which is very IndyCar, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I've been quite used to that, actually, watching that recently.
Oh, I mean,
anyway.
you are just getting absolutely abused by the system. Let's be completely fair. Let's not get into it, because you'll go off on a rant.
I'm not sure how I brought up soccer on an IndyCar Open Series broadcast, but I have, so anyway. But yeah, well, if I was Adam Blocker, put it this way, I'd pick with 2 laps to go and sort of basing it on what everybody else has been doing so far. I think that's the safest thing to do. And he is experienced enough to know what to do in this situation, but if I was his race engineer, if you like, I would be looking for the safest way to get home from here. You can put your trust in Blocker that he's going to keep it on the road, that he doesn't need to do anything crazy, but he will maintain the gap at the very least, if not extend it to those behind, and keep this lead with a safe strategy rather than doing anything outrageous.
Of course, Adam Blocker, the a 2023 Indy 500 winner in the real world, part of Joseph Newgarden's team behind the scenes, and got to drink the milk and celebrate by kissing the bricks. He's going to be working with Juncos Hollinger Racing this year as a performance engineer, so wishing him the best of luck as we get ready to go. Not far away from a new IndyCar season kicking off on the streets of St. Petersburg once again. Hoping, by the way, talk about iRacing maybe adding the new push-to-pass, or updating this car to have the correct push-to-pass system in. Can we scan St. Petersburg as well?
I'd hope so. Is there a sim with it in? I mean, I don't know.
Well, on the TV broadcast a year ago, someone did say iRacing had scanned it, but you know, if you go back a year ago and think where we were, it was more likely that a certain other company had scanned it rather than iRacing. So maybe we can do it this year? Maybe we can buy the scan data?
Wow, yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought of that. It's possible. I'd say I'd like to see it because it's an iconic circuit. Certainly of a certain generation of IndyCar fans who have watched that be the opening of the season for the opening round of every IndyCar season. Certainly in the years I've watched it, it's been the case, and it'd be great to have it on the calendar in iRacing as well, or at least have it on scanned and up on iRacing. So it's got to be on the list of tracks to do.
Plenty of tracks, by the way, that we could look to add across of not just modern day IndyCar, but people have been pushing for kart content and maybe heading to some of those legacy tracks as well. Burrell's on the back of Karasala, who is of course yet to make his final trip down pit lane, and this is where the call for Burrell to also be saving fuel will come in handy. He'll just pop behind, save a little bit of gas, although on the run out of the carousel with Phil Kraus closing from behind as well, just maybe a bit of mental pressure more than anything, because it's opened up towards the front. It's going to close back in, of course, though, when Jacob Oster comes in with those alternate tires and switches over to the primaries. He'll leave the Powerslide Motorsports pair of Malechka and Van der Sant to try and push from behind. Van der Sant's brought that gap, by the way, to Malechka to roughly around 3.9 seconds.
Yeah, it's somewhat surprising that those two are separated, I have to be honest. Thought they were going to stick together for now, but clearly not. So it looks like it's going to be between Oster and Malechka for that second position. And the thing that Oster has done well here, and I'm not sure whether this is by design or whether he's sort of fallen into a fortunate situation by accident, but he has made sure that he will be ahead in the final stint. He's going to make Malechka do something to beat him. He's not in the situation where he's sort of hoping to beat Malechka. He's going to say, the ball's in your court. I'm giving the ball to you, if you like to use another different kind of football analogy. You do something with it and try and overtake me, is what he's saying to Malechka basically here. And that's a good way round to do it. You're not going to be left wondering here. If he goes and overtakes you, then so be it. You know, weren't quite quick enough on the day. But he won't die wondering in this race, and he will make Malechka do something to make the pass.
How many different ways are you going to try and bring football in today?
Well, that's a different kind of football I was going for. I'm not sure. I'm running out of sports to really reference an IndyCar broadcast, to be honest. Jacob
Oster's into pit lane as Adam Blocker, 6:46.9, sets the new fastest lap of the race. Oster indicating there, by the way, he's doing the 3 laps on the on the primaries, I should say, at the end. And clearly for Blocker, Malechka and Van der Sant, likely to see them in at the next time of asking. And Adam Blocker's got 8 push-to-passes saved up to try and set a new fastest lap. Burrell's going to fly past Karasala with no questions even considered there. If you're wondering what the race lap record is, well, Alexander Smolyar, F3 driver, as far as I can remember back in the day, 6:37.641. So there's no chance that we're getting close to that. The qualifying time, which is maybe a little bit more realistic to see drivers pushing like crazy to try and dip down closer to, well, that's a 6:34.639, so maybe not that much more realistic. I've just realized, though, and half the reason why I've just brought all this up, my lap records from like 3 years ago are still in 3rd position. Woo!
Your world record?
Well, my lack of world record, I should say. My time's on the world record board. There you go.
Well, your podium on the world record, is that a thing?
They've not been beaten yet. That's what I meant to say.
Well, yeah, there you are. So yeah, I mean, it's all this data is sort of coming back again, and it's only bizarre combinations we could get world records in. I think. I don't know if I'd be able to get any world record at all. I don't think, unless there's a combination not yet done by someone. I don't know. I've got to find one.
I might have a, not anymore, but if you gave me practice, I might be able to try and figure out how to go around some tracks. Only in an IndyCar, though. Anything else, I'd probably be pretty pathetic. Oh, why are we looking at the word man? Oh, because the rear end's slithered out on him, and that's going to cost him crucial seconds as he now tries to get those primary tires cooled down a little bit.
That's going to be very difficult as well. It's not exactly like you've got a long time to get, or a long time on a straight to cool them down or anything. You've got to just get on with it immediately again, and so this race all of a sudden has become a little bit more difficult for him. So let's see. Not a good way to start your stint either. That's got to be pretty demoralising as you enter the final third of the race to have sort of an immediate spin like that.
He's only 5 seconds off of Brian Carey, so he does have some quote-unquote traffic yet to come down pit lane that he'll need to maybe navigate through on this lap if he really goes gangbusters to the end of this one. You can still see Carousala feeling a little bit of pressure from behind as Phil Kraus only half a second off. There's Adam Blocker as he heads off down into the first real fun part of the Nordschleife. Now we'll dip it through the left-right, then into miss, down towards Wurstreifen. At this point in time, Adam Blocker is Adam Blocker's worst enemy. All he can do is try and stay out of trouble.
Only he can prevent himself from winning this race, and he knows that at this point, but he always feels daft saying this because he's so experienced and he's been in this position so many times, it's almost not worth saying anymore. He's so experienced as saying being in this situation that this won't faze him, and he won't even take his foot off the gas either. I know people say that often it's probably a better idea to do that anyway, but it's easier said than done to keep an IndyCar going at this pace around this circuit, and you might wonder, well, is it worth taking a couple of seconds off your lap time just to be sure? But he won't do that, and he probably shouldn't either in terms of backing off here. He'll keep going for it, and he will win this race if he continues on at the pace that he doesn't make any mistakes.
Don't forget that you can jump into the iRacing IndyCar community Discord if you're watching on RaceSpotTV. The YouTube link, the Discord link has just been thrown into the YouTube chat, if I get my order of words out of my brain and into my mouth correctly. Come join us. We chat about real-world IndyCar, everything iRacing IndyCar, of course, as well. And it's a great place for resources if you're looking to try and get up to speed, or in the case of maybe setup building, looking to try and get some tips from the likes of Adam Blocker, who's done a great series on YouTube. Just go ahead and search Adam Blocker IndyCar setup, and hopefully you find all the good stuff. Brian Carey's on the push to pass now, so he's burned through half of his push to passes. You can see those numbers popping up on the left-hand side of the screen. Like I was mentioning, Adam Blocker's got them in heaps and bundles on those laps on the alternate tires to try and go even faster.
Yeah, and look at the amount of push to passes that Blockers have got left as well, by the way. 8 still remaining. Is he just going to not use them as some sort of I don't know, it's some sort of statement or whatever to make it look make this win look better than it already is. Although we've kind of given him the race already, I feel a bit nervous.
We're trying to commentators curse him.
I'm not trying to, but I'm trying not to by saying that. So there we are. But yeah, 11 seconds the lead. He's doing absolutely fine. Two laps to go at the end of this one, and yeah, he's employed the strategy that I would have in this situation as well. So he's in control, as we mentioned, and that's been the case for quite some time.
I think the thing that we're just waiting to wonder now is, does he do the 2 laps on the alternate or the 1 lap on the alternate? So we're about to find out. Phil Kraus has dropped behind Carousala again, and it's out of the carousel. So can I put 2 and 2 together and say Phil Kraus has had a little bit of an oopsie? I'm going to say yes.
Okay, well, maybe. I think he said that knowing.
Not yet. Now I do.
Okay, well, let's have a look. It's the most famous place. Oh, it's the opposite way round to what we've seen, actually, throughout the most of the day. We've seen him going in a little bit too narrow on the way in and clipping the left-hand, the sort of flatter part on the left-hand side. Instead, it was Kraus braking a bit too late and failing to sort of dig himself into the bank section, and unfortunately loses the place, and that's going to cost him a little bit more work than, it's not going to cost him that much time, but it costs him more time in sort of the work he has to do to overtake again.
And of course, we are expecting him to be 3-stopping as compared to the 2-stop for most of the other drivers. Blocker burns one of the push-to-passes as he comes to the end of what will be lap 7. It's now, right now, power slide 1, 2, 3, 4. Jacob Oster, of course, has already made his final trip down onto pit lane, and now we're about to find out, I think, how much it's cost him, not to Blocker, but maybe more importantly, I should say, to Malechka and Van der Sant. Will they follow their teammate in? The klaxon goes off. I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think that they're not going to do too much damage to themselves by doing a second lap on the Reds, so that's what most of them have decided to do here. We'll see if anybody else continues, like Brian Carey carries on for maybe one more to sort of lead. Well, he might not lead anyway, actually, given the gap. He's actually a bit further back than I thought. So Blocker is going to continue out in the lead anyway, even though he carries on. Jacob Oster is coming down the pit straight now and will also get past them all, I think. Although it will be close. Malechka's here for a long time, though. Long stop for him.
I think Malechka got dinged for speeding on pit entry, so Jacob Oster grabs second. Malechka's still sitting there. I think that's his chances done and dusted for a podium. Brian Carey will get out before him as well, I would believe. And, well, that's frustrating, I'm sure, given that Malechka had driven problem-free until then.
And it's really cost him as well. He will be behind Hubler, who gets out ahead. Brian Carey as well has made his pit stop and is already out there again. Malechka's still down on pit lane. It's a horrendously long stop for him. 7th place now, a long way behind Burrell, and all hopes of a podium are entirely gone.
Let's see if we can take a look at the pit entry and see if he was a bit too fast, or if we're just searching for an answer that doesn't necessarily exist. Here we go. Looks fine initially. Oh, he locks the left front. It's hard to really tell from that perspective, but I've got to assume that's it.
Yeah, I think so. And without the on-screen that he has, it's pretty difficult to tell anyway. But it's such a minor difference compared to what we normally see from everyone's pit entry. I mean, I don't know about you, that to me looks pretty similar to almost every one that I've seen so far this race, and just generally as well. Everybody's just so close to the limit, though, in terms of speeding that, I mean, Malechka could have braked, 1 metre earlier and he might have made it in time. That's the sort of differences we're talking here. It really is remarkable, but he has gone over the limit, and it just make you wonder somewhat, is it worth it when it costs you 35 seconds like that?
It was definitely not intentional, but I know where you're going with that, and yes, especially in the longer races, you've got to be very mindful. Something to think about, of course, this week. Heading into the iRacing Daytona 24. Brian Carey's now had a bit of a spill, dropped behind Kevin Burrell, Alexander Van der Sant on the alternate tyres, and 1.2 off the back of the spaceman Jacob Oster flying in through towards Arenberg. They will go. And knowing that Van der Sant's got two laps, I should say, in these alternate tyres to eke out of them, once he closes up to Jacob Oster, probably won't look to try and use the tyres too much, until he finds another place on track to go for a move.
Yeah, that is the advantage, I suppose. He's going to sort of sit behind and have all the cards to play himself, and Oster's just going to have to do what he can, really, from that situation. But what can you do at that point? It's going to come down a little bit to push to passes remaining, and where you use them, how you use them, and also will Oster let Van der Sant through in hopes of coming back again later? I personally don't think he can do that. I think he's got to stay ahead and stay in second place from now until the end of the race. I can't see him going back down to third and then re-overtaking.
Especially since he's burned all but 2 of the push-to-passes left with 2 laps to go. It leaves him very, very vulnerable, both in terms of defense but also in terms of offense, because Van der Sant, in contrast, still has 4 of his push-to-passes left to burn. Check out what happened to the Canadian Brian Carey. It's in through the Hadson back, where I'm not sure if he tagged the inside curb or not, but may have done some left front suspension damage. At the very least, has ripped the end plate off the left front as well.
I'm surprised he didn't do more damage there, visual damage that is. He just doesn't, well, he brakes a bit too late. He doesn't quite get to the left hand side as he should do on the way in there either. I guess he's fearful of hitting that curb too, but even so, you've got to try and thread the needle through there, and unfortunately didn't quite get it right. We always talk about the curve being unusual around here, but they're especially bad in this car.
This is the perspective Looking rearwards from Jacob Oster, Van der Zandt burns through one of those 4 push-to-passes, so he's down to 3. Oster's talking to a teammate. I wonder what information they're feeding him. I was just looking over in the power slide chat where Brian Carey, Robert Malechka, Adam Blocker, and Van der Zandt are all in communication, but all of them muted, can't hear each other, and the two come to blows. Van der Zandt in the wall with the rear wing dangling, Oster in the wrong direction and trying to spin it around.
And this is going to be a very awkward moment for Oster to get back going again. Now he does, with Hubler thankfully still another 10 seconds behind. I think that one's going to come on Van der Zandt because he sort of seemed to clip the 8 car on the way in the braking zone there, and it sent them both around in the end, but he has ended up with the position.
Seemingly. Whoa! Van der Zandt, I was about to say, with no damage. What car control! But that rear end not necessarily working correctly. It's going to be a struggle to bring it back around, and surely he's not going to try and risk it for one more lap.
Well, he might do. Well, he's losing a lot of time already. Look at the wheel work having to go into this, by the way. Steady.
There's no way. No way.
I mean, there's one lap to go. I'm sort of tempted to say, why not? Well, maybe not.
Okay, I was going to say, the more we watch, the less comfortable I am.
I'm not comfortable even watching this.
Zachary Hubler, I think, is probably licking his lips. Although, having said that, he's got to, does not have to come down pit lane. I was reading the timing screen incorrectly. So he's in a prime position to be in second. Burrell would be third. Malechka still in with a chance of getting a podium spot on his alternate tires. Van der Zandt still working hard. Let's go back in time, though, and take a look with Van der Zandt's perspective first. What happened? Let's not forget, he did have to push the pass, and it had just run out of steam.
Yeah, so, well, yeah, that's difficult to call, really, with Van der Zandt behind. So, Oster is sort of defending, but also looking for the racing line as well, although Van der Zandt broke very late, I guess assuming that he was going to be given room, but in fact wasn't alongside here at the braking zone at all. I mean, he misjudges that for me. He just misjudges it. I mean, there's ever so slightly less than an IndyCar gap down that left-hand side, but he assumed that there was. Well, didn't assume, but he did think there was.
What I will say is that I do think that was a little bit more on the Powerslide Motorsports driver, but Van der Zandt went for a gap that he thought, I think, Jacob Oster was trying to slightly force him down. It's not necessarily the normal line to have arced out that widely, and now with the white flag out, Adam Blocker's already across the line to start what will be the final lap of the race. We'll see if he's able to go fastest of them all, and faster still on this faster lap. Let's see if Van der Zandt's going to peel off down towards pit lane. Oster's already only 1.3 off the back.
Yeah, it's surely going to be Van der Zandt in the pit lane here, and he does indeed come down pit lane. Unfortunate for him, but it is of his own doing. Oster back into second place again, and I think he's going to have enough to hang on from Hubler as well, who will now be promoted onto the podium. It's a shame really for Van der Zandt, who's driven well over the course of the race, but as I say, that is on him for me. Just not intentionally, of course, but he's just misjudged the amount of space that he was given on the outside there as he was trying to make a move, because he was coming from behind in the braking zone.
So he drops out of the top 5 as now Robert Malechka is on the back of Kevin Burrell. Look how much he tried to cut the inside there. Just so confident in the amount of grip that he has underneath him. So there's one lap to try and find a way past to get up to 4th position. No way that the 8-second delta then to Zachary Hubler is going to be closed on down. So it's just now waiting to see if there's a mistake in the number 7 machine, or if he will hang on to the final podium spot. Van der Zandt gets spat out, by the way, in a little bit of a fight. So behind 7th spot, has something to fight for at least on this final lap.
And that is good to see. I think it's going to be very difficult for the two in front to hang on, so this could well be 7th place for Van der Zandt here. I could say what I find very interesting around the Grand Prix now is that what to me, someone with not a lot of experience at all with driving an IndyCar, the strange line they take through the Mercedes arena. I know we've been racing for 9 laps and this is the last one, and none of them are going to go through that section again, so maybe it doesn't matter anymore, but it seems to me as normally in a GT car you would sort of open out that final corner of the Mercedes arena to get a good run on the next straight. Now I know that the straight is about half as long as it normally is because we're turning through the right-hand hairpin there, but even so, you would normally take that sort of opening line through turn 4.
Well, it's pretty simple. We don't have the downforce. So it becomes quite difficult as well. That was Brendan Lichtenberg getting very sideways through the entry into the Nordschleife, down through the Sabine Schmidt curve. Already Van der Sat looks to the inside of Blaise Andrick, but not going to be able to get on through. Yeah, you're not wrong. It is a little bit counterintuitive, but you're just trying to get the car to turn. The Grand Prix section is just like a sea of understeer. That's the best way to describe how it feels. It's a sea of frustration maybe for Van der Sat now, because he is on the alternate tires behind two cars with maybe worn primaries that are now slowing him down, as Phil Kraus also on the alternates is closing up.
Yeah, but Van der Sat has got some decent amount of push to pass to go here, and he will have the time on his side as well. He's on the outside towards Flugplatz. He goes through on the 18 car already, and will be looking for a way through Lichtenberg, who responds with a bit of push to pass as well. So all of a sudden it could become a little bit more difficult. This should be the final overtake of his race though. Van der Sat is going to go round the outside here on the way down into the braking zone at Arenberg. This would be special, and he does go through. The newer tyres have won out for him there, and he will be in 7th place, likely to the end.
And it's a nice pass. Can Phil Kraus get past the two in front in quick fashion? He's going to close on them in a rather uncomfortable spot as Lichtenberg covers the inside on the rise up at the bottom of the track to the out of the foxhole in towards Arnaud Forest. Bit of a lock up there from Andrick, but no one really running out of room. Adam Blocker is starting to burn through the push-to-passes on this lap, so he's trying to make a statement of intent, it would seem, on the alternate tires. He's going to win this race by 30 full seconds at the front. Came into this one the championship leader with the big buffer as well. Half the season will be in the books, and Blocker's in a great spot, it would seem.
He is. And this race gap is sort of flattering, 30 seconds, but even so, it's... You know, it's deserved in some ways because he's driven so well and he's been unchallenged. I guess 30 seconds is maybe a bit large for a gap, but even so, he's driven so well, he's been unchallenged, and he will take the race win here, you would imagine. The arguments are going to be for other positions further behind. Van der Sat will finish 7th, I'd imagine. Who on earth will finish 8th, though? It's really still up in the air.
So Hubler uses now what is his third to final push to pass as he tries to just keep himself out of range of Malechka and Birel. Carries in no man's land of his own. Kraus on the back of Andrick, and with just one push to pass left, is going to have to time that one and conserve it. There's contact though. I think Kraus got out of Bergwerk slightly better and now loses the front wing, and it's not been an easy day for Phil Kraus by any means. He'll be hoping his Lionheart Championship finale showdown goes a little bit more smooth.
He will. And who is this slowing down? Andrick is slowing down as well.
He's lost the rear wing. It's dangling.
Oh. Well, this is awkward then. The two of them. What are they doing here? Well, it seems like neither of them really want to go first through the muck curve, in fear that the other one might crash, I suppose, but they'll sort it out between themselves. I'd imagine Andrick will finish 10th or worse as a result of this, and well, both of them are going to have to get a move on here if they want a top 10, because Carasala's not too far behind.
I think at this point it's just try and survive, as lack of rear downforce for one, lack of front end turn for the other, and so one very unstable, one very sluggish. Not an easy ride for either, and you're right, the 16 will try and close. This is going to be a wild one in terms of the iRating differential that we have through the field. Look through the movers and shakers. Oster will be +6, Malechka will be +5, Lichtenberg +6, Kraus -6, Andrick will be +8. But is Adam Blocker on to the Dottinger Hoa for the final time? And no change for him. He's led all the laps in terms of running at the front on strategy, and will win by more than 30 seconds.
Yeah. Doesn't have to do any overtaking here today, but and that would have been exciting to see, but nevertheless we've got to see him drive exceptionally well on a circuit not used so often with this combination. He's tackled it very, very well, and he's been a fully deserving winner.
It'll be interesting to see how the second half of this season goes, but Adam Blocker, championship leader coming into tonight, will be the championship leader at the halfway mark of 2024 season 1. Fastest lap does indeed come in. It's only a 6:46.392, but Blocker put on a bit of a show for us up towards the front. Bit of a wait for the rest of the drivers to come to the line. Here comes the worm man, Jacob Oster. It'll be Zachary Hubler that will get the final spot on the podium, but will Robert Malechka hold off Kevin Birel? Birel's a little bit too far behind, let's not forget. He's seemingly got a little bit more downforce on his car too.
Yeah, the gap just a bit too big, irrespective of almost anything else really. Tyres, tyre wear and downforce as well. Birrell just a bit too far away, and so Maleczka is going to finish fourth. It's a case of what could have been today, because if he hadn't have had that pit lane penalty, it would have been an easy second in hindsight.
Couple more drivers on that push to pass further down the field as top 5 run their way to the line. Is Phil Kraus going to be able to hold on with a lack of front wing? That might in some ways make him less aerodynamic, but also more draggy, you'd have to think. And so Karasala with the push to pass with that draft as well slingshots his way forward to grab a top 9 position away from the private label Team Hype machine. The very pink car not going to fight this one around the outside, surely. He's going to have a go. He's going to give it a gander. Finally thinks wiser of it.
Well, he gave it more of a go than I was expecting him to. He very nearly had a look around the outside and tried to hold that, but it will be 10th place for Phil Kraus. I guess it's a decent recovery from his spin at turn 1, but the race could have looked very, very different if he'd have just exercised maybe a little bit more caution on the opening lap.
Go back and see, by the way, something that happened to Nick Sudik as he was trying to run his way back through the field. It's into the final corner. Oh my giddy aunt.
He's stuck.
That's about as violent as they come.
That is, yeah, that's not nice for Sudik. Into the tear gun. Lifts off on the way in. Just gets down. It sort of gets the downshifting wrong almost.
So I think if we ride on board, what you're going to see is he pulls the clutch in and he's going to go down from 6th. Wait for it.
Let's see.
He's pulled the clutch in, gone down to 2nd, and then when he lets the clutch out, he's going too fast for the speed the car's going. Yeah,
that is an issue with, I guess he was saving fuel. That's why he had the clutch in on the way into Tiergarten there. But you're right. If you're going in with that speed, you run a risk of blowing up the engine. Never mind spinning into the wall. I guess maybe both is a realistic risk.
Here comes RaceSpot's own Lewis McLeod. He's never looked better, by the way. I don't know where they got that picture of him, but I mean, he should look like that on every broadcast.
He doesn't look like that.
I mean, if we could get him into that suit, it would be an improvement, is what I'm saying.
So that was you.
You forced me to say it out loud because you weren't getting the joke. Oh, look at it. Sorry, go ahead.
Respectful.
Oh, but that's because he's your commentary dad.
Oh no. Everyone looks remarkably similar for some reason in this lobby.
I mean, it's a great look. It's clearly what we're seeing. Olivia Hayward, the final driver that will finish. And I've got to say, the first race back on RaceSpotTV. It's fitting to be at the Nordschleife in some ways, but I think plenty will be looking forward to next week away from the Green Hell and, well, over on the Dutch dunes at Circuit Zandvoort. We'll grab a look at the results, hope to get some post-race interviews as well before we wrap coverage up and move forward to what is a busy night on RaceSpotTV. It will be Blocker from Oster by 30 full seconds, with Zachary Hubler, Robert Maleczka, and then Kevin Birrell and Brian Carey, the rest of the top 6. Alexander Van der Sant, Brendan Lichtenberg, Sam Karasala, and then Phil Kraus complete the top 10. 11th for Blaise Andrick, 12th for Tristan Moss, with Eduardo Roca stormed through the field on the opening laps, unfortunately seeing him drop back to 13th. But in front of Seb Alexander in the Indy Alliance Racing Machine, Lewis McLeod, Olivia Hayward, and then Nicholas Sudik and Taylor Lane making up the rest of those 18 cars that took to the green flag. And as we mentioned, fastest lap from Adam Blocker on that final lap of the race, just to drive home the point, I guess. We'll see if we can catch up then with some of those race winners as they sit with us and wait with us in victory lane. Let's drive over to Adam Blocker, who's standing by once again. Adam, you were just catching up with some of your competitors. Great to have IndyCars back on RaceSpotTV. You know I'm excited to see them back at the Nordschleife as well. How interesting, how fun was that for you up towards the front?
Well, it seemed like a really good race behind me with a lot of stuff happening. Watching on my relative, a lot of passes, a lot of different things happening. But for me, yeah, obviously got to start on pole and kind of watched Phil and Kevin get together in turn 1. I was watching, I saw it happen. I could have released my brake to avoid it if I needed to, but I kind of just got through, and that gave me a gap to people behind and allowed me to kind of just settle into a rhythm and build my own pace. And from there, it was really just about pace management, which is not easy at this track.
Talk to us about the time management too, because It was a long stint initially, 4 laps on the primaries, then 3 laps again before you switched over to the alternates at the very end. Was that kind of what you had penciled in? There seemed to be a bit more variation further down through the field.
Yeah, that's what that was the strategy I was going to go to if I had my choice, and yeah, that's what I decided to do. Really, on our set, tire management was not that hard. We didn't have to move the bars or anything like that, and really just our balance on the long run was really consistent, which we haven't had here before, so it was really nice.
Well, I guess it's hard to really ask you what's in store for the rest of 2024 because, the news has just come out. I'm sure plans changing all the way. Talk to us a little bit, though, about where we'll see you racing a little bit more this coming year.
Yeah, I hope to do a lot of Indy Open, especially these Monday SOFs are normally really strong and really good participation. And then, we'll have to see after that. But yeah, Open will definitely be one of the priorities. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody, obviously at iRacing and IndyCar for putting this back together, this whole deal, and then obviously you guys at RaceSpot for broadcasting again, and everyone in the community for just being so united over the last year and keeping everything going. And yeah, obviously we had a great turnout today, and yeah, it's just great to be back.
We're back. We'll see you at Zandvoort in a week's time. Adam, congratulations on the victory.
Yep, thanks.
Slide on over towards the Worm Man, Jacob Oster, who is standing by for us. Jacob, talk to us a little bit about that race from your perspective, including that drama as you ran your way towards the carousel.
Yeah, IndyCar's back. We come back into contact. I don't know. I'm very surprised that both times my rear wing didn't end up on the pavement. And as Rob said, it's a very funny wreck. I could have been a little bit farther right, but I don't know. One of those racing deals, so much overspeed.
Sounds like the iRacing gods at least smiled on you in that situation. Glad that there's not too much ill tempers on either side, and fortunately Alex seemed to get the worst of it as well. Talk to us though about the overspeed, because you spent the first stint sat behind, sipping on the fuel, and just waiting to try and leapfrog, it seemed.
Yeah, I knew that Power Slide was running a lot less downforce than me. I had the wicker on, they did not, so I knew that on the straights they would blitz by me and pull me. I knew I was better everywhere in the corners though, as you see me just fall back in the Rob at certain times. I just knew I had to sit it up and wait, which is why I went to the reds to try and get that gap, and it would have been easier if I hadn't half spun on my outlap on the blacks the last stint, but broadcast jitters, I guess.
Oh, I see. You're blaming us for it. Got it.
Yeah, I know. You probably said something about it, so I'm gonna blame you.
Anyway, we'll move on to next week to Zandvoort, because that should be a lot of fun, right?
I hope so. It's the banked one, right?
It's the new one, yes indeed.
Oh, I heard that is fun. I guess I gotta practice. Oh wait, no, it's after Daytona. That's gonna be interesting. Okay, we'll try it.
YOLO, it sounds like. Congratulations on holding on to second, Jacob, and we're gonna bully you into racing in a week's time, unlike Brandon Traino tonight.
Exactly.
Jacob Oster joins us for post-race interviews. Let's slide on down to, unfortunately not the third step of the podium, but Robert Milechka said after crashing that the best part about it was he doesn't need to speak to me anymore, so instead, he'll be chatting with you at O'Leary.
Welcome in. Good to have you with us here, Robert, again. Fourth place for you here tonight in the race. How good is it to be back racing the IndyCar and back again, feeling like, better times are upon us here at the moment. How are you feeling after tonight's race?
Well, I mean, I think the first, 6 or 7 laps there was a blast. I mean, the four of us were kind of just going at it. Was the first 2 stints. And then the driver forgot how to drive and sped on pit road. Pulled the good old Jason Brophy. So, other than that, I'm very happy with my pace. I think I would have only finished 12 seconds behind Adam, which for me, going up against one of the best on here is a W in my book. So, happy to be back on the broadcast here and looking forward to these in the future.
Yeah, we are as well. I mean, what about the rest of the schedule here this season? How much are you going to be here with us? Starting with Zandvoort, of course, in 1 week's time. If you had a look around the sort of the new banking that we have in our racing these days for the Zandvoort circuit, how have you had a look at it?
I think most of us are extremely excited for Zandvoort because I don't think many series on here has ran the new scan. So, in my opinion, Zandvoort is just the perfect track for this car, and I don't know we'll put on a show, but other than Zandvoort, I'm looking forward to running all the ovals for the rest of the season and into next season, and maybe 1 or 2 more road courses. But me, more of a oval specialist, so.
We'll look forward to seeing you there. Still free to come on the schedule here for Season 1 in 2024. Thanks so much for coming to chat to us, and hopefully we will see you in next week at Zandvoort, or maybe Texas as well.
Yep, thank you guys.
Thanks very much. From Maleska, 4th place here today at the Nordschleife.
Great to be able to chat with him. Well, for you and to chat to him. He didn't want to speak to me. And I love that we managed to throw some Jason Brophy slander in, despite the fact that he's not even here racing today. Oh, we are indeed back. And, well, Robert sounds quite excited about going over to Circuit Zandvoort. Now, that date's wrong because I'm a numpty. That time's wrong because I'm a numpty as well. Also, I'm a numpty because we don't have B-roll of New Zandvoort. It's high banks, it's high speed, but a lot of the track itself, Ewan, hasn't necessarily changed. It's a type of track where I feel we're going to also be in that same situation. Compromise on setup is going to be what we're talking about.
It's going to be a very different race to here, I think it's fair to say. It's 31 laps, first of all, but also, yeah, there's going to be some compromise. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to overtake, I would imagine, but same technical challenge that you get around the Nordschleife, you get around there at Zandvoort as well. Different circuits in many ways, of course, but there are still lots of twists and turns, and I think the fact that we've got the new layout as well will suit the IndyCars a little bit more. That the banking changes, of course, were brought in for the Formula 1 to go back to the Netherlands again, and that's been a good thing for those cars. And I think the closest two F1 cars really have in iRacing is the Indy cars, and so I think it will suit them somewhat as well. Hope that the racing turns out good.
Let's take a look at that schedule as well, because we're 6 rounds in, let's not forget. We only got to start our coverage tonight, but it doesn't mean that those first 5 rounds don't get included into the championship. 12 rounds across the season, 7 of them road courses, 5 of them ovals, and well, Texas, Detroit, Nashville, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and then a trip over to Pocono to close off this first campaign. And I've got to say, Pocono's always a lot of fun to close things out, and hopefully we won't have a championship decide, so we can put pedal to the metal 5 wide at the end. That would be quite fun.
Can I throw you under the bus one last time and say Pocono's probably not going to be 3 days before Montreal? But anyway,
no,
that's what the schedule says.
You can hashtag blame Dane for that one.
Okay. I mean, the button number 1 is quite close to the button number 2. So
it's a good point. Hashtag blame Dane.
We can forgive that. Although in the same way, Arjuna, Friday's not that close to Monday. So
no. That graphic was carried over from IMSA Prime. So that was a silly Billy mistake on my part. Don't worry.
I figured that out. So I'm done throwing everyone under the bus now. I'm sorry.
Because you're officially sacked at RaceSpotTV.
Yes, that's the end of me. So thanks for having me. It's been good. But no, it's 6 weeks to come. Very excited about them starting with Zandvoort next week, and I hope you'll join us for that too.
Hopefully people realize that we like to joke around a lot, and we're not serious people all the time, despite the fact that we do have to commentate on some serious things occasionally. Yes, it is time to say goodbye. For tonight, don't forget PRL, Lionheart, RSR action, all still left to come here on RaceSpotTV on this Monday evening. But 7 days from today, we're back live with these IR18s, but this time as we make our way over into the Dutch dunes. Join us from Circuit Zandvoort, but for you and O'Leary alongside Arjuna, Kankipati and myself, thank you for your company. It was great to be at the Green Hell. We'll see you in a week's time over at Zandvoort.